Today's video is sponsored by Braith Shattered Realities. Discover a vast new campaign setting for 5e, available for Roll20. Your players can adventure across Ashandri, a world that was reforged after an apocalypse. The setting offers 18 new player races, such as the death-defying Ashfolk or the two-faced Ravager Elves. Braith is a highly unique and diverse setting where you can easily travel from lush forests into a desert or an ocean of ash. Travel across the massive world chains that connect the countless worlds of Braith with each other. Braith is a living and expanding setting, with several new releases every year, such as the Adventure Library of Sorrows. Braith is designed in a modular fashion so you can use everything, or pick and choose what will work best for your campaign. This is an absolutely massive many campaign settings in one, which means there's something for every table, including yours. Braith Shattered Realities is only available on the Roll20 Marketplace. Click the link in the description below to start your next campaign in this awesome world of worlds. And now what you're here for.
When I put my level 13 party through level 1 dungeon. We have a multiple year-long campaign with 4 players, all level 13. They are scouring the continent for sacred artifacts needed to prevent the end of the world, blah 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 high-level stuff. To the story. They show up in a sleepy town tavern in search of the unbreakable crown, and through an extended roleplay session with the townsfolk the night before their real adventure starts. They latched on to one sad NPC I roleplayed on the spot, who wasn't interested in talking. Through a few good checks, they got through to him, and learned his name and all his backstory. Why was he so sad, and why didn't he want to talk? His son was kidnapped by goblins. Generic improv, let's go to B and get on with the real quest. No. Where are the goblins? How many? When did your son go missing? I realized where this was going. They were attached to old Dan and wanted to avenge his son. My DM brain kicked in and I started thinking of how I could make an interesting challenge and tie it into the overarching story. But at the last minute I decided no, let's just pretend like this is the level 1 kick of the session. They get the location of the stream the boy was playing in when taken. Ranger rolls 27 for survival. They follow the goblin trail with no issues to a dank hole in the ground. Please note for comical effect, I disregarded passive perception for tonight. Pass without trace. They slip silently into the goblin hole. 2 guards stand at the bottom armed with rocks. One takes 38 damage against his 7 HP, the other over 50. They don't survive the surprise round. A few steps later, the paladin leading the party triggers a trap, rolls for Dex save 19, success, and takes half damage, 2 against his 120 plus HP. Party lets out a chuckle and continued to move cautiously down the dark cave. They approach a larger room, light flickering off the roof from a bonfire. Smell of smoke and cooking meat filled the space. 8 goblins danced and wrestled and drank around the fire. Party takes a few minutes setting a battle plan. Rogue hidden and ready to strike, Ranger has bow drawn, Paladin ready to charge, and the Wizard casts Shatter on the bonfire at 5th level to kick off the epic battle. Everything in sight is instantly turned to red pulp. The party then starts to get it. This isn't the epic dungeon I prepared for the next day. They were literally just storming a goblin den. They proceeded from room to room, literally stomping goblins out of existence. The only damage done was 2 to the paladin. I made sure to add the occasional dead villager or traveler around to keep their consciousness clean. They snuck up on the bugbear warchief, Zaz the Gutter, and unloaded a synchronized sneak attack dealing well over 300 damage against his awesome 27 hit points. The wizard dropped a 7th fireball. We didn't even calculate the damage for that one. The party was having the time of their life, feeling like the gods they had become since they started in a similar dungeon several years ago. One of them actually dying to goblin arrows back in the day. Bursting through shitty doors, having arrows ting off their armor, taking traps to the dome left and right without slowing down. In the end, they heard yelling, and with a quick DC 10 check, Rogue rolled a 27, they found the farmer's son, scared and dirty but safe. They plunder a total of 4 GP, 33 SP, and almost 100 CP. Added it to their hoard of 100k plus, not including physical assets. They returned to town, less than an hour later, covered in goblin blood with the boys smiling on their shoulders. Everyone's still in the pub. It's only about 10 p.m. now. The place erupted in cheers and showered the party with drinks, food, and love. It was really wholesome and just so much fun. The party gracefully declined the farmer's quest payment of 5 GP, everything he had. They slipped a pouch with 1,000 GP to the boy. The next morning, they bought a decrepit farmhouse on the outskirts of town and had a blast designing their retirement plan house together for once the world is saved. Too bad I'm going to kill them all. I've never really considered running a party through something so easy with a positive outcome. It could be a failing of me as a DM to think that every session should be a struggle. I'll have to try this in my next session. And speaking of positive outcomes, this next story may be the most wholesome, tear-jerking D&D story of all time. Brace yourself. Posted on a throwaway in hopes of anonymity and the privacy of our story's hero. Our fighter/barbarian has no issues doing what it takes to win a fight. Dive into frigid waters and wrestle some troglodytes? Sure. Hit an orc chieftain below the belt? Just try and stop him. But he suffers from one weakness. We learned he grew up an orphan and survived on the scraps he could find to get by. Because of this, he developed a soft spot for those who couldn't help themselves, especially the poor and the young. Our DM decided to test this, and upon our party entering a town besieged by raiders the day before, we found a collection of newly made orphans taking shelter in the ruins of a church of Bahamut. The kids were abandoned by the city. Its inhabitants are too concerned with their own losses to hold any sympathy for them, the poor things. The cleric healed their wounds, and the druid, me, fed them with good berry. The orphans thanked us for our kindness. We offered to let them travel with us until we could find a safe place for them. However, they told us they were afraid to venture outside the city walls. After seeing what came from behind them, the raiders, and what they really wanted to do was travel via ship to the neighboring city across the ocean and join its temple, as it seemed a much better option than remaining where they were. We agreed to help them find a ship and secure passage, only to find out that the only ship's captain around was a crook himself and demanded 100 gold per child. Unfortunately, 2 sessions ago, we spent the majority of our money buying supplies and items, and between all of us, we had about 240 gold total, roughly 400 gold short. Our fighter decided to barter with the captain and offered his greatsword in trade. After rolling a natural 20 on the persuasion roll, the captain became so overcome with fighter's generosity that he ferried the children for 100 gold. After a short pause, the DM remarked that he expected the fighter to strong-arm the captain, not barter, and asked why he chanced losing his very expensive weapon for a bunch of nameless NPCs. Fighter just smirked and said the line we all love to hear. It's what my character would do. We later found out that every one of those kids went on to become paladins and clerics. And upon ending the campaign, and allowing all of us to choose how we wanted to wrap things up, Fighter decided to seek out those kids. They remembered him and expressed their gratitude to him for taking pity on a bunch of orphans, when no one else would even look at them. He told them, "But you're not orphans. You became my children that day. It's me who should be thanking you, for giving me the family I never had." It's at this point that I want to point out just why this hit the DM and myself as hard as it did. Fighter didn't just play an orphan. He lived it. His real story wasn't that far off his character. You may be wondering why I'm telling this story and not him. Well, other than the fact he was always too humble to ever take any credit for anything. 20 years ago, he adopted the DM and myself. It's thanks to him we were able to stay together and have the life we did. I'll always be grateful to him for his kindness. A true hero if there ever was one. We lost him very recently, and finally writing this out has been a small form of therapy to me. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening, and don't forget, it's not blood alone that makes you family. All that matters is love. I'm absolutely crying. Are you kidding me? That man is a true hero, and we need to honor him. Thank you so much for sharing this story, and the memory of him will live on forever in the hearts of everyone that listens to this story. My party is my family. We've been together for years through good times and bad. Keep yours close and cherish them and the memories you make. Before we take our leave, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, All Things D&D. Stay tuned for more amazing Dungeons & Dragons content every Tuesday.